Okay, so I wanted to make this video because sometimes I feel like I have a lot of pent-up creative energy in me. I need to be creative. I like to draw and paint and do stuff like that in addition to writing. Writing is obviously my favorite thing to do, but I do also like other forms of art. So if I don't do anything creative for a while, I tend to get kind of like artistically frustrated, I guess you could say. Sometimes even when I'm not working on like a bigger project, I like to sit down and do creative writing activities just to release some of that energy and to put something on the page and to, you know, practice. And I am also an English teacher. I'm teaching at a technical college right now, but previously I taught high school. As you can imagine, there's not a lot of room for creative writing in the curriculum, but I would always try to work it in wherever I could because I just love teaching it and I loved doing it, and it's something that was always a lot of fun. So these 5 things are kind of a combination of what I used in the classroom and then what I do on my own. Okay, the first thing, I know I've talked about this on my channel before, but I like to look at random image generators or just look at random pictures. Sometimes you can go on photo hosting websites and they'll have just random pictures, but I've kind of updated that activity a little bit. I've had a lot of coffee. Okay, my new thing is, I guess I should like maybe film this. Okay, so if you look at the Wikipedia main page on the left, there is a link called Random Article and you can click on it. Okay, so I have Kasim Babu Brothers. You can be strict with yourself and say, I'm going to write for 5 minutes about the article I click on, but sometimes I click a few times to get an article that kind of sparks something. So, what is this? A spotted spiny lobster. This reminds me of a novel that I started once about mermaids. It was going to be about one particular mermaid who's half mermaid, half human, and gets to decide at the age of 16 if she's gonna live on the shore or continue being a mermaid. I haven't thought about that book in a while. Maybe her friend can be a spotted spiny lobster. So that already sparked something in my mind about something that I was previously working on. So that is interesting. This one's cool. What I Mean to Say Is Goodbye, an album by Tom Brousseau. I've never heard of him, but I like that sentence. That would be a really cool one to write about. So I would probably pick that one. I know that would lead to a pretty good 5 minutes of writing. This next one is something that I love to use in the classroom because it fits into the curriculum, so I get away with using creative writing. But it's rewriting an important scene in a book from a different character's point of view. This is something that all English teachers do pretty much, but I really enjoy the activity. And I really enjoy doing it. Like, I always wrote with the students. I've talked about the Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver before on this channel, and I love that book. I read somewhere that she wrote each chapter in multiple perspectives to choose the one that fits best for telling the story, which is a ton of work, but it's also really cool because you get to know each character a lot better, and it makes the story more complex and deeper, and there's some stuff there that the audience doesn't know, but it might shine through at different moments. I actually had my students who are reading the Poisonwood Bible write a scene from the dad's perspective, because the entire book is from the perspectives of the mom and the daughters. And he never has a chance to say anything. He kind of comes across as this terrible person. I wanted to see how they viewed him, how my students viewed him, and who was going to give him some redeeming qualities and who was going to continue on with the interpretation of him that we get from the daughter's perspectives. So doing that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed writing it with them and hearing their takes on it. And it's something that I feel like I should probably do as an activity more often just for myself. This next activity is really fun. It's kind of like found poetry. I first did this activity in a creative writing class. I've only taken one creative writing class in my life, and it was in my master's program. That was like my favorite class that I've ever taken. But here's how you do this activity. So you pick two different things. You can print out, I think when we did this we used two different newspaper articles, but I'm going to use this Glamour magazine from September 2013 and this little book called On the Plane that came in a little Chick-fil-A kids meal. It has gotten wet and my son will be fine without it, so we're going to use it for the sake of art. So I'm going to pick an article. This one is called Cocaine Almost Killed Me. Here's an article about the do's and don'ts of turning 30. Good thing I have another year. Okay, I'm going to use the cocaine article, and I think I'm going to like this Juxtaposition because this is like a kid's book, a kind of informational book about planes and airports, and then this is obviously a pretty adult article. So there's two ways of doing this. The way we did it is we cut along one of the articles like in half and then cut along the other part and put the halves together. But I'm just gonna cut out different things and have fun with it. So this is what I came up with. People stand in a line. I started going a little crazy. I was always a happy kid, but the air mixes with fuel and burns to make hot gases. Suddenly, I couldn't breathe, learning to be a person again. From inside the airport, we can see our plane take off again to fly to another destination. I'd live on gum and sugar-free Red Bull. People do all sorts of things on a plane. When you're high, you feel like you love people you don't even know. Can you see them? There's a life jacket under every seat. And once you do get through it, you have a life. So I think this is a really cool activity. Sometimes you can just like throw stuff on there and read it, and it's amazing what can come out of that. What ideas and what different interpretations you can come up with. So I really like that activity. I just spilled coffee all over myself. The good thing about having a baby is I always have baby wipes everywhere and they really come in handy. That's not the only good thing about having a baby, but it's, you know, one of the perks. Another activity that I would use in the classroom I call description overload. A problem I saw with my students was they thought using a lot of adjectives means they're a good writer or a creative writer. And I was trying to break them of that, so I would come up with a very bare bones like scene. Like you walk up to an abandoned building, you stand and look at it, you walk in the front door, you turn to the right and see a locked door, you find a key on the floor and open it, what's inside the room, stuff like that. What they would have to do is make the writing more exciting using the 5 senses. So I'd ask them to describe what they smelled, what they felt, what they heard, just anything you can think of regarding the scene. What I liked about this is how different each student's scene ended up. It was interesting to see what kind of building they thought it was and what they thought it looked like. I still think about that when I'm writing. Instead of just using adjectives, how can I describe things in a way that's interesting and makes the reader feel like they're actually there? And that seems like a very simple thing to do and a very like obvious thing, but it can be interesting taking a second to stop and think about what all of your senses are feeling somewhere, or take your main character and think about everything that she's experiencing in that moment. And my final one, I know this is on different creative writing activity lists, but I like having someone give me 3 numbers, and then I go to one of my bookshelves, and for the first number I count off how many books. So if they give me a number like 1,000, I probably can't do this, but I find that number book, and then the second number I use for the page, and then the third number I use for the sentence. So I generally give them like, you know, use 1 through 20 for the first and the third number, and that's pretty helpful. Or I could just do it myself and write down without thinking about my bookshelf 3 numbers. And then I timed myself for like 5 to 10 minutes and just use that sentence as my first sentence and then keep writing from that point. So I'm gonna do that now. So I'm gonna go with 12:45:7. 12:45:7. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so my 12th book was Dash and Lily's Book of Dares. My sister got this for me for Christmas one year. It's from the authors of Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. Oh gosh, I can't remember my numbers now. Is it 45 or 47? I think it was 45:7. I'm probably wrong, but we're just gonna do that. 45. The 7th sentence, I just love your boots. So I would take that sentence and that would be the start of whatever I was writing, and then I would time myself and continue it. I like this activity again for the random aspect of it. Sometimes when you sit down to write, coming up with the beginning, like starting it, is the hardest part. So if you start with something, a line, then it's generally easier to get going. So I hope you guys took something from this video. I just wanted to share some of my favorite creative writing exercises and generally what I do if I just want to sit down and do something quick without really working on a bigger project. And in the past, these activities have led me to write for a lot longer than I was originally planning to. Sometimes it even ends up being a short story, which is really exciting when that happens.